have to accept people identify as, in this case, as women. I think that is commonly accepted.
Well, after declaring herself a TERF on ITV last night, Nicola Sturgeon was nowhere to be seen today. Instead, she threw her Justice Secretary, Kith Brown, under the bus, safe in the knowledge that he too would be fluent in absolute horseshit. There are very few clips of Kith Brown talking in the Scottish Parliament today, largely because absolutely no one in the SNP want anyone to know what he said. But here he is yesterday. Take it away, Keithy.
Are Isla Bryson and Tiffany Scott, another transgender prisoner that has been in the news over the weekend, women in your view?
I think that is the case. We have to accept people identify as, in this case, as women. I think that is commonly accepted, and that's a starting approach that we take. However, that does not mean, has never meant, that they would have the right to go into the female state. A rigorous safety assessment is carried out, and it can involve doctors, the health service, it can involve psychiatrists, and a multiplicity of different agencies feeding into that. It doesn't just happen once either, it happens during the course of the time that somebody's serving their sentence in prison. So that is not the criteria which determines whether somebody is able to be in the women's estate.
The premise of this safety test has to be transphobic. We know this because there are no instances of women being sent to a men's prison because they put other women at risk. Therefore, the only thing that is being measured is whether the person was once a biological man. Once that is established, and only once that is established, there will be a judgment on whether they are dangerous or not. So, now backpedaling like mad, the SNP themselves are creating yet more new genders. We now have safe trans women and still dangerous trans women. It's not like a very large minority didn't already warn the SNP of this problem.
Yesterday, a double rapist was sent into a women's prison, and for the legal reasons you've cited, I'll need to be careful about what I say. But this scenario is exactly what I tried to stop during the passage of Nicola Sturgeon's Gender Recognition Reform Bill. But I was voted down by the narrowest of margins, and even with the flawed bill in limbo, violent criminals are exploiting the system and putting vulnerable women at risk. So can the Cabinet Secretary tell me why his SNP government think that any rapist should be allowed inside a women's prison?
I've not said anything funny yet. Some in the comments say I never have. Because this has gone beyond the realm of satire. Nicola Sturgeon has alienated women, used trans people as a political football, and denied vulnerable women the opportunity of a safe rehabilitation. All in the name of an independent Scotland. I'll tell you what is funny. This whole thing has exposed Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP for the absolute wank socks that they are. If you watch the footage from today's Scottish Parliament, the SNP were quiet as, not a neat nor a tatty, at a time when the UK government has never looked more impotent and corrupt. Sturgeon has said, "Hold my beer," and created a bill so bad Gary Glitter cannot wait to get out of prison and get back into prison in Scotland. This is not an attack on trans people. There can't be many trans people in Scotland or anywhere else that think any of this is helping their cause. On one side, we have sex-offending men using the Gender Recognition Bill to spend 10 years on holiday in heaven. And on the other, whole swathes of the UK population now have no inclination to be supportive. Apathy is the word now. Apathy. Oh, and by the way, you don't have to identify as a woman to be given a female gender recognition certificate in Scotland now. As long as you're over 16 and you've got a dress on and you feel a bit fancy, you can be a woman.
Events of the last few days should have made it vivid to everybody that that's not the cohort that we're dealing with now. We're dealing with a radically expanded category. The trans umbrella is now taken to include people who cross-dress for a whole variety of reasons. There is nothing in the provisions of the bill as drafted that will stop men who cross-dress for erotic purposes, who from gaining GRCs, who cross-dress for the purposes of avoiding being sent to a men's prison when they've committed horrible crimes and think they'll have a nicer time in a women's prison.
I'd normally say you couldn't make this stuff up, but a whole political party just did. I can hear the fat lady warming up her vocal cords. Sturgeon's departure isn't imminent. She needs time to cover up her tracks. But it won't be long.